How's it, everyone? How are you?
Hello, Rob.
Hello, Rob.
How's it?
Hello, Rabbi.
How's it, everyone? Hello, Liz. Hello,
Good,
Mark.
Tov.
Hello,
How's it,
Sean.
Rabbi?
Hello, Stephen. Who else there? Hello, Gabriel.
Shalom,
Who
Rav.
else? How's it? Who's there? Who's there? I just want to see everyone.
Hello, Rabbi.
How's it, Janet? How are you?
Baruch Hashem. And
Liz,
you?
you look young. Good. How are you keeping? Are you keeping all safe?
Baruch Hashem, all good.
Good. I'm so happy to hear that. Adrian, join us. Hello, Adrian. How's it? How are you? Who else there? I see Adrian join us. Hello, Adrian. Sean, we say hello. Gabriel, we say hello. Who's there? Who else there that I didn't say hello? Oh, hello, Iva. Hello, Anthony. Okay. Are we all on? Okay. So what we're going to speak today, Rabotai, is about what the significance and the speciality of Sefer Devorim, as I mentioned, on Thursday night. And today, Be'ezrat Hashem, we're going to try to understand why Sefer Devorim is different to the other Humashim. Because as you all know, we have 5 books of Moses, and today we look about what's so special about Sefer Devorim. How Sefer Devorim actually fit with us, and what does it mean to us? And we look at it step by steps. I'll go with you step by steps. I'm first of all going to explain how many, sorry, I'm just opening my jacket, how many parshiyot there is, how many chapters. Then I'll go also how many verses there is. And then I'm going to speak also how many mitzvot aseh, how many mitzvot lo ta'aseh there is, who wrote Sefer Devorim. There is a mahloket in the Gemara who wrote exactly Sefer Devorim. I'm going to try to explain when is Sefer Devorim been written. And that's one thing that many of us have to understand. Then I'm going to go to a different stage, how many names Sefer Devorim have. And then Be'ezrat Hashem, I'm going to explain the last 4 parshiyot, what's happened. And then I'm going to go back to the beginning. And I'm going to join it together to the Kabbalistic way, what Hazal say, and I'm going to bring the Rokach, Rabbi Eliezer Migarmiza, how he explains Sefer Devorim from a different aspect. So, Be'ezrat Hashem, na'aseh v'natzliach, ve'Hashem alenu berachamav yarviach. Okay, השיעור יהיה לעילוי נשמת אסתר קדן בת קציה, אסתר בת משה הלוי, ודניאלה בת, I wrote it down, I just have to find it. Where did I wrote it? Here. דניאלה בת יעקב ראובן, ומרדכי בן רחמה, נשמתם תהיה צרורה בצור החיים, ולרפואת מנשה נג'י בן פרחה, ליאורה בת מרים, לירון בן יהודית, ושמואל בן מיכל, וכל שאר חולה ופצועי עמו ישראל בכל מקום שהם. בעזרת השם נעשה ונצליח, והשם עלינו ברחמיו וירוויח. ספר דברים. What's so special about it? So first of all, we have to understand how many chapters there is in Sefer Devorim. In Sefer Devorim, we have 11 chapters, and there are Devarim, Vaithanan, Aikev, Re'eh, Shoftim, Ki Tetzeh, Ki Tavo, Nitzavim, Vayelech, Ha'azinu, Vezot HaBeracha. 11 chapters. How many verses there is in Sefer Devorim? There is 955 verses. Remember that number because we're going to come back to it in the end. Remember 955. How many chapters there is in, how many chapters there is in Sefer Devorim? 34. So we see from here, we have 11 parshiyot, we have 955 verses, we have 34 chapters, we have positive command 75, and we have negative command 122. But remember the number 955, we'll come to it. Who wrote Sefer Devorim? So according to the Hazal in a Gemara in Masechet Baba Batra, in page 14, folio 2, and 15, folio 1, and also in a Gemara in Masechet Megillah in 31, verse 2, Sanhedrin, in the Gemara Masechet Sanhedrin 99, folio 2, from Hazal we learn that Moshe Rabbeinu actually wrote Sefer Devorim himself. That means that Moshe Rabbeinu himself wrote all of Sefer Devorim. Okay, but you can ask now, wait, but Moshe Rabbeinu wrote all the Torah. Yeah, there is a difference. Moshe Rabbeinu wrote the 4 books of Moses by command of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And we'll see how he wrote the 5th book of Moses. So we have to understand that when it's come to Sefer Devarim, we'll see how that works. Okay, so we understand that Hazal said that Moshe Rabbeinu wrote Sefer Devarim. There is no dispute about that. The Gemara and Masechet Baba Batra have a mahloket. The mahloket is who wrote the last 8 verses of Sefer Devarim. And why am I saying it? Because the last 8 verses of Sefer Devarim speak about the death of Moshe Rabbeinu. So here, there is a problem. Okay, according to one opinion in Sefer Devarim, according to one opinion in the Gemara and Masechet Baba Batra, in page 14, folio 2, remember 14, folio 2, there Hazal say that the last 8 verses of Sefer Devarim wrote Yoshua bin Nun. Why? Because that speak about the death of Moshe Rabbeinu. How can he write? The other opinion in a Gemara in Masechet Baba Batra 15, folio 1, tell us no, Moshe Rabbeinu wrote the entire book of Devarim, include the last 8 verses, because when he wrote it, HaKadosh Baruch Hu told him to write it, and he wrote it while he was crying. So from here we see a mahloket, who wrote the last 8 verses? But the entire book of Devarim, there is no mahloket. Moshe Rabbeinu wrote it. Okay. When is the book of Sefer Devarim been written? Moshe Rabbeinu gathered Bnei Israel, okay, in Aleph Shvat. Remember, the first of the months of Shvat, in the year 2488 for the creation, just before Bnei Israel ready to enter Eretz Israel. And for the next 36 days until Zayin Adar, Moshe Rabbeinu actually speaking to Bnei Israel. That means that he teaching them the book of Devarim. Moshe Rabbeinu, also we have to understand, wrote 13 books of Sefer Torah. That means 13 Sefer Torah. Each tribe got one left, and they put it in the ark. So we understand from it that Moshe Rabbeinu actually spoke to Bnei Israel until the last day of his life in Zayin Adar when he died. Okay, Moshe Rabbeinu also wrote, we explained, 13 books of Sefer Torah, each one given to each tribe, to the head of the tribe. So each tribe will have their own Sefer Torah, and the one they put in the ark. Okay. Now, Sefer Devarim have different name. The one name that we all, and that's the common Sefer Devarim, it's called Sefer Devarim, everyone know it. But Sefer Devarim also called Mishneh Torah. Mishneh Torah, how do we know that it's called Mishneh Torah? So Hazal tell us, if you look at this parsha that we're going to read this week, it's Parashat Shoftim. In chapter 11, verse 12, what does the Torah say? Vekatav lo et Mishneh Torah azot. That Moshe Rabbeinu wrote this book that called Mishneh Torah. What does mean Mishneh Torah? It's a second, Mishneh. Okay. Other name to Sefer Devarim, it's called Sefer HaTochachot. What it mean Tochachot? The book of rebuke. Here Moshe Rabbeinu rebuke Bnei Israel, okay, and for the sin that they done and the sin that their father done. So we see from here that Sefer Devarim, a matter of fact, have 3 different names. One is Devarim, Sefer Mishneh Torah, and Sefer HaTochachot, the book of rebuke. Okay? And now we're going to get to speak about the last 4 parshiyot. The last 4 parshiyot that Moshe Rabbeinu wrote in a book. And they are, Rabotai, listen to that. They are like this. Nitzavim, Vayelech, Ha'azinu, Vezot HaBeracha. Those the last 4 parshiyot that there is in Sefer Devorim. Why am I mentioning it? Because Moshe Rabbeinu wrote those 4 parshiyot, okay, listen to it, on the same day that he passed away. That means on Zayin Adar, Moshe Rabbeinu wrote those 4 parshiyot. And Hazal tell us, how do you know that it was like this? So I'm bringing the book Seder HaOlam. A book Seder HaOlam been written by the sage Rabbi Yossi ben Halafta. Rabbi Yossi ben Halafta said the last 4 parshiyot of Sefer Devorim been written on the last day of the last day of his life of Moshe Rabbeinu. You say, how do you know that? He said, what does it say there? Vayelech Moshe. And Moshe gone. Where is Moshe gone? Hazal asked, and that's the Gemara also, Shaila, that Hazal asked in Gemara. Hazal said that Moshe Rabbeinu gone from one tribe to another tribe to say goodbye to them. That means Moshe Rabbeinu knew that he passing, and he gone to each tribe and to each person individually to say goodbye. And that's how we know that the last 4 parshiyot Moshe Rabbeinu wrote. When we explained the beginning of the show, that we have to understand what's the difference between the book of Devarim to the rest 4 books of Moses. What is the difference between them? And I would like to bring the idea of the Maharal. The Maharal Miprag, you all hear about him. Who he was, the Maharal Miprag? The Maharal Miprag was Rabbi Yehuda Levy ben Betzalel. He born 500 years ago in Poland. And he wrote in one of his books, Tiferet Israel, in chapter 43. Remember, Tiferet Israel, chapter 43, that's the book of the Maharal. And he wrote like this. And he explained the difference between Sefer Devarim to the rest, the 4 books of Moses. And by the way, this opinion that the Maharal bring, after that also the Gaon Mivilna bring, the Gaon Mivilna lived 300 years ago, and also the Magid Milubna, Rabbi Yaakov Krentz. So they all agree with what the Maharal Miprag gonna explain. And he explained it like this. I took it and I actually summarize it, because it's very long, but I summarize it for us to understand. And the Maharal Miprag say like this. If you look at the first 4 books of Moses, HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Moshe Rabbeinu to write them, and Moshe Rabbeinu wrote. He couldn't change one word. The last book, actually Moshe Rabbeinu wrote it. He wrote it in Ruach HaKodesh, in the Holy Spirit. Okay? What happened here and why? What's the difference? He said like this. The Maharal explained like this. He said that when HaKadosh Baruch Hu spoke to Bnei Israel, it was too difficult for them to understand the depths of the contents of those 4 books. That means Bereshit, Shmot, Vayikra, Bamidbar. Those books was very difficult for Bnei Israel to understand the contents. When I say contents, I'm talking about what's hiding behind what Moshe Rabbeinu. That means, if you look, Moshe Rabbeinu, few times saying to Bnei Israel, and he getting cross with them, once even, when they done sin. But Moshe Rabbeinu didn't speak to them directly. Okay? Why? Because Moshe Rabbeinu understand that Bnei Israel cannot understand the depths of what's happening in that book. So what happened? Moshe Rabbeinu then wrote the 5th book, him himself, the book of Sefer Devarim. And in that book, Moshe Rabbeinu speak to Bnei Israel and explain to them and rebuke them. And he rebuked each one individually, Rabotai, and that's the point, individually, okay? That every person from Bnei Israel can understand what HaKadosh Baruch Hu mentioned to them and the first 4 books. That means that the book of Devorim come to explain to Bnei Israel where they make HaKadosh Baruch Hu cross, where they sin to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, how much merciful HaKadosh Baruch Hu was with them, how much Moshe Rabbeinu have to stand and daven that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will not punish Bnei Israel. So that means that the book of Devarim come to explain the 4 books of Moses. Now I'm going to stop because I'm going to move now to another thing. If anyone have any question, please ask now. If I can answer, b'chavod. Any question? Okay, let's continue. So now, at the beginning of the shiur, we explain like this. We explain that in Sefer Devorim, we have 955 verses. And we have to understand that when Moshe Rabbeinu wrote that book, he didn't write 955 verses just like this. No, there is a secret behind those numbers, 955. Rabbi Eliezer Migarmiza. Rabbi Eliezer Migarmiza, born 855 years ago. And he born in the city of Mint, that's in Germany. And he was from the Rishonim, obviously, 855, that means the Rishonim. And he called something a book that called Harokah. And then his name, his nickname, I'm sure that you hear about it, Baal Harokah. In his book, he explained why there is 955 verses in Sefer Devorim. And he explained like this. He said that there is 955 verses, and they are exactly equivalent to the 955, Rabotai, listen, to the heaven. Again, 955 verses, that mean up in Shamayim, there is 955 heavens, one equivalent to each other. What is the secret behind it? And he explained like this. He said, every time that a person read a verse from Sefer Devarim, he open one heaven. Every verse open one heaven. When we read the 955 verses of Sefer Devarim, we opening all the 955 heaven that there is up in Shamayim. And what does it mean? I will explain now. Now, each one of those heaven have abundance. Abundance of health, abundance of wealth, abundance of happiness, abundance of everything that a person can desire. Every time that we read one verse, we open those verses, and then the abundance coming down. Say Rabbi Eliezer Migarmiza, Baal Harokah, he explained like this. He said that every time that the person read, he get those abundance coming down. But how does it work? He said like this. He said that when a person read, he can read the 955 verses. The malachim, the angels, cannot go over the 900 heaven. That means 55 heaven, they have no permission to enter. Even Memtet Sarapanim, that means Matat Sarapanim, that's the highest angel. We don't understand. That angel that in charge and can penetrate, he can penetrate only the 900 heaven. So what's left with the other 55 heaven? Say Rabbi Eliezer Migarmiza, listen what he said. Moshe Rabbeinu specially wrote in Sefer Devarim 955. Why? That in the merit of Moshe Rabbeinu, when we read Sefer Devarim, in the merit of Moshe Rabbeinu, all of those heaven of prosperity will open, and that abundance will come down. All of this brachot and abundance that there is, we can open them. What the angel can't go, we can get there. Why? Because the last 55 heaven say Rabbi Eliezer Migermiza. I know that I'm speaking a bit high. I'm trying to make it as simple. Only HaKadosh Baruch Hu is there. That means the 55 heaven above the 900 heaven, no angel can go there. It's a stop. After that, only HaKadosh Baruch Hu can go there. Explain Rabbi Eliezer Migermiza like this. Moshe Rabbeinu that wrote Sefer Devorim, you know why he wrote it? That we, Bnei Israel, when we read Sefer Devorim, we can reach even higher of Matat Sarapanim, the angel. That means that we can bring down all the abundance that HaKadosh Baruch Hu have for us by reading Sefer Devorim. By the way, the same thing I saw that wrote Rabbi Yeshua Pinto Shalita. He also mentioned that, and many other Rabbonim. But the Kabbalistic Rabbi explained what's so special about it. The Kabbalistic Rabbi say like this. The Kabbalistic Rabbi say, when a person have a free time, if he can read Sefer Devorim, he actually opened the gate of the abundance. That means each heaven is a gate for certain abundance, for certain bracha. There is one heaven that it's in charge about health. There is other heaven that gate for it is wealth. By that you're reading those verses, you're actually opening those gates and you're reaching to that heaven and the abundance coming down on us. So said the Mekubalim, if people knew the value of Sefer Devorim and the virtue of Sefer Devorim, every spare minute that they have, they will read Sefer Devorim. What did they say? So there is other suggestion that people bring. How can I finish all of Sefer Devorim? You can't finish all of Sefer Devorim. Only if you sit and you read it all day. So what happened? So Hazal say like this. If you have few people on Shabbat, your kids, you, your wife, your children, ask everyone to read Sefer Devorim. You read that parsha, he read that parsha. But that you read few parshiyot, you're opening more heaven. That means you're opening the gate of different heaven and the prosperity will come. Now, especially now, in a time of this corona, Baruch Hashem, from what I understand, that the level of going to drop to level 2, and Be'ezrat Hashem, that it will drop even lower, that the case is not going to increase, should be only decrease. So we need a lot of health. And if we need a lot of health, so we have to understand that we have to, please God, open the gate of health. How do we do that? By reading Sefer Devorim. So from here we learn that Sefer Devorim, it's not just a book. We have to understand that the book of Devorim is a book of blessing and salvation, or salvation and blessing, whatever you want to call it. Because inside the book of Devorim, there is 955 verses, and those 955 verses that can open the gate to each one of the heaven and up in Shamayim. That means if a person wants to open, he wants prosperity, he wants blessing, he wants salvation, he wants whatever you want, read the book of Devorim. That's Rabbi Eliezer Migermiza, remember, Baal HaRokach. He explained what's hiding behind it. How come that you and me and each member of Bnei Israel can do it? He said that Moshe Rabbeinu, when he stood up and he wrote those verses, he pledged to HaKadosh Baruch Hu that in the merit of Bnei Israel reading the book of the Devorim, that will be his merit, and on his merit, like he gone up to heaven and he received the Torah from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that heaven they can reach the same like he reached. Now we can understand how we, by reading Sefer Devorim, can reach to those 55 heaven that Matat, the Malach Matat, the angel Matat, cannot reach to it. Why? because Moshe Rabbeinu reached to the highest level, and in his merit, because we read that book, Moshe Rabbeinu promised us that in his merit, we can bring the salvation and the blessing and the prosperity to the world and the abundance by reading all of those 955 verses. So now we can understand what's the virtue and the importance of Sefer Devorim. I would like now to stop. If anyone have any question, I'm sure that some of you have question, so please unmute yourself and ask question. Bechavod.
Rabbi, do we have to? Rabbi, do we have to answer, read it all at once?
Yes.
Over a period of a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks?
Okay, so I explain. You can't read it all in one shot. I mean, you have to. If you read Hebrew, I mean, I think that I can read Hebrew. I think so. But if I read it, it will take me quite some time. You know, a parsha take me around 15, 20 minutes to read. Okay, so imagine reading all 11 parshiyot that we have in Sefer Devorim. It can take a few hours. You know what I'm saying? It's not just pashut. Especially a person that doesn't get used with the Sfat HaKodesh, it's going to battle a bit. So, lehatchila, I explain. A person should read it, first of all, every Shabbos. Every Shabbos that we have, we should read one parasha. For example, we started, I'm sure that every one of you, each one of you read one parsha every Shabbos. Now, I don't know what's going to happen this coming Shabbos because the shul announced that they're going to release a protocol, but they didn't release yet. But in a moment that they're going to release the protocol, when we go back to shul, I don't know how's it going to happen. For those that going to shul, obviously can listen. By that you're listening and you're following it, you follow and you read it. That's mean the Baal Kor read, for example, Ele HaDevarim, and you watch it and you say Ele HaDevarim. It's like you read it. And then when you come home, you read others, you and your wife and the kids, and it's considered like you all read it. By that you read it, for example, sorry, 1 second. Hello?
Hello?
Who's
Yeah.
that? Sorry, sorry, Gavin. So what I'm trying to say, by that you read maybe the first 100 verses. If you read the 100 verses, there is another 855 verses that they are locked. So to open those gates of those heaven for those blessing and salvation, someone else has to read it. Do you understand what I'm saying, Gavin? So if you read that and someone else will read the others, that will help to open all the gate of those heaven, so those salvation and blessing and abundance can come down. You understand? So if it's take a day, it's take a day. If it's take a week, it's take a week. Whatever it's take, you follow.
Yeah, so if we start, let's say tonight.
Who wanted to ask another question? Say again?
If I start tonight,
I didn't hear.
If I start tonight and I finish on Shabbat, it's counted.
Okay. So given at night we don't read Tanakh, Torah, Nevi'im, Ketuvim.
Okay, if I start tomorrow morning and I finish...
We read it during the day.
If I start tomorrow morning and I finish...
Beautiful.
Okay.
Beautiful. Perfect. What better than that? Beautiful. Any other question? I think that, Mark, you wanted to ask question?
It's me, it's
Mark?
Adrian.
Adrian, Bechavod. Yes, Adrian.
As each verse is links to a different abundance, do we know which links to what? In other words, to help.
So, very good question. I knew that someone going to ask that. We have to understand, certain people think that the abundance, let's say, for wealth is very important. Others will think only health. So Hazal didn't reveal to us, I'm sure that the Mekubalim know, but they didn't reveal to us which one is which one and why. Why is it? Because by that you know only the verses, let's say that a person need wealth. So he read only about money. You want money because you need money. So Hazal didn't tell us that. But sometimes can be that few verses link to wealth and few verses link to health, because each health have a different one. It's not only just to have health, to have a nachas, that a person can live in peace and harmony. That's one of the nachas. So it's all linked together. Do you understand me? But Hazal didn't reveal to us exactly which one is which one. You follow, Adrian? I hope that I answered that question. Any other question?
Yes, you
Rabotai?
did. That's the first question. The second question, Rabbi Levy.
Yeah. Bechavod.
So only HaKadosh Baruch Hu is there? I don't understand. What do you mean HaKadosh Baruch Hu is on his own there?
What are you referring to? The last 55 heaven?
Yes.
Oh, very good. Yeah. So what does it mean? Only HaKadosh Baruch Hu can be on those 55 heaven. No other angel allowed to enter. Obviously, if HaKadosh Baruch Hu want them to enter, he allowed them. But just to walk to those heaven, they can't. I call it walk. But they don't walk, they fly.
As an example, if the 55, I would imagine, are like the highest heavens, if the angels are blocked from being there, does that mean that only the special souls of the big Gedolim that get to those levels?
I don't know, Adrian. I really don't know. I'm not a mystical rabbi. I wish that I can answer that question. I really don't know. But if you ask, so Hazal explained in the Gemara in Masechet Sukkah. Yes, Masechet Sukkah. Hazal said in the Gemara Masechet Sukkah that tzaddikim atrotehem berosham, that means that they have the crown on their head and they sit together and they learning Torah mipi HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And sometimes they're learning Torah from Moshe Rabbeinu, Avi HaNeviim, the father of all the prophet. Where is Moshe Rabbeinu sit? Can you imagine? So obviously on those 55, maybe you're right. Maybe there is.
Imagine he's next to
HaKadosh
Baruch Hu.
Torah from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Maybe, I don't know. There's no other source to it, because I'm not a Kabbalistic rabbi, but I'm just trying to remember the Gemara in Masechet Sukkah to explain to us how to link it together. You follow?
Harav? Harav?
Yes, who's speaking?
It's Stephen Kabatsnik.
Yes, Bechavot, Stephen.
Harav, if you're doing the Shtai Mikra every week, you're doing the Parsha every week, does that not count for this whole thing?
Okay, so what you do, Shtai Mikra ve'Hat Targum. It's called Shtai Mikra ve'Hat Targum. That's what you refer to.
That is correct. Nachon.
Okay. Shtai Mikra ve'Hat Targum, there is a different guarantee. That the person that reads Shtai Mikra ve'Hat Targum, that they guarantee him that he's not gonna be, first of all, not gonna die before his time. That whatever HaKadosh Baruch Hu given him years, that's where he's going to stay. That's where he's going to live. Shtai Mikra ve'Hat Targum. Also, Shtai Mikra ve'Hat Targum, it's good for the person, for the soul, and for the wealth, and the health. That's Shtai Mikra ve'Hat Targum. But that still doesn't help you to read all the 955 verses. Why, Stephen? Because there, when you read Shtai Mikra, you read twice the Mikra, and Hat Targum. Targum is Rabbi Yonatan ben Oziel, not Rabbi Yonatan ben Oziel. You're reading his Targum. You follow? But you're not reading the 955 verses of Sefer Devorim, because sometimes you are in Sefer Bereshit, Sefer Shmot. Or let's say that you are in Sefer Devorim, but let's say that this week you're going to start reading Parashat Mishpatim, נכון? in Parashat Mishpatim, to finish Shtayim Mikra ve'Echad Targum take you every day, you can finish one part until you finish all the Parsha. Only if you sit on it all day, because it takes at least 40 minutes a day to finish one part, to repeat it. You understand? Because the first aliyah, that's how it works. Nachon, Stephen, correct me if I'm wrong. That the first aliyah you read twice, and then you read the Targum. You agree with me? Stephen, are you there?
As I read the verse, I read Targum simultaneously.
But you have to read it twice.
Because then we got to see the second time in the public reading in shul.
I see. So what you're doing? But now you don't have public reading. You read it at home.
So we read it. We read it with the family. Yes, my son reads.
That's what I'm saying. So you read it at home.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, you read. Let's say on Sunday you read the first aliyah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. On Monday the second aliyah, and etc. That's how you do it. Nachon. So what I'm saying is, so you read first the aliyah, and you read the mikra. Mikra is the mikra, what you read on home. And then you read again the mikra, again, and then you read the targum. So that can take easily 40 minutes. I don't know if you can read it all, if you're not busy all day, then you can do all the...
I take it in separate sections, yeah. I read the...
So what I'm saying is, by reading... So what I'm saying, by reading Shtayim Mikra ve'Echad Targum, Stephen, you cannot finish the 955 psukim that there is in Sefer Devorim. Okay. Because the 955 verses that you have in Sefer Devorim, those what you must read. Never mind the Targum. We're talking about just the Mikra now. You need to read them one verse by one verse by one verse by one verse. But that you read every verse, you open the gate of heaven number 1. Heaven number 2, heaven number 3, heaven number 4, that's verse 4, and etc. Do you understand what I'm trying to explain? So the Shtayim Targum, the Shtayim Mikra ve'Echad Targum, not going to help you with that. You follow?
Understood.
Hope that answered that. Any other questions? Someone?
Yes. I have a question, Rav. This reading of Devorim that you're talking about now, do you read it once in a lifetime, or every year, or what? Once a year, maybe?
Very good question. So I explain. The Kabbalistic rabbis say, every minute that a person has a spare time, that he's sitting, instead of watching rugby, watching cricket, or reading the news, you have nothing to do, rather read one verse. And say to yourself, I read Sefer Devorim today, and I read Parsha Devorim. I read, for example, 15 verses. You put a bookmark and you write, here I stop, and then you continue from there. Plus what you're reading every year we finish Sefer Devorim, nachon? Because every year we finish the 5 books of Moses. It's a cycle.
So what you're actually saying then is that you should read it forever, every day, at least one verse or 2 verses.
Absolutely.
Every day.
Absolutely. By that you read it, you're opening every day, you open a different gate of the heaven that the abundance will come down.
Okay.
People want Nahat Ruach. You know what is Nahat Ruach?
Yeah.
There's many people that doesn't have peace and harmony, and they need it. We all need it today. Look at the chorus that there is. There's not 1 minute that you don't hear bad news, and this one doesn't work, and this one have difficulties. By that we're reading book of Devarim, say Rabbi Eliezer Migarmiza, and I tell you now a secret, he bring it in a day in the name of the Kabbalistic rabbi, the mystical rabbi, that they explained it. He was a great Kabbalistic, obviously. That by that we opening every time gate, sometime you read the verse or you read the chapter and you didn't read and you didn't pronounce sometimes the verse properly, the word properly in that verse. By the second time that you read it, you say it right. And that's how the prosperity comes. That means it's not enough just to open gate number 1. What about gate number 2? Maybe gate number 3 and 4 and 5, all connected to one. That means when a person wants health, it's not just that he is healthy, that he can breathe and he can eat, but it's to get rid of certain pain, to get rid of a headache, to get rid of chronic disease. That's the secret of Sefer Devorim. And that's what I try to explain to our friend Adrian, that sometimes there are certain verses that link one to each other. It's like a link. You open one, you need to open the other one for the prosperity to come, because they're all sitting like one on top of each other. By that you take one and one and one, and you open a different heaven, you actually opening the abundance on you. But maybe the abundance of health or wealth. Let's take wealth. A person needs wealth. But maybe it's not just to have money. It's also to have brocha in the money. Because Hazal tell us, when a person stand and daven to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when he wants something, he should daven that he will explain himself to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And Hazal tell us a story in a Gemara. A person was walking in the wilderness, in a desert, and he said, I wish that I have a donkey. After a few hours, a person, another, a soldier passed with donkeys, and one of the donkey given a birth. And that little donkey couldn't walk. And he saw that man, and he said to him, I command you to put the donkey on top of your shoulder and walk with us. So what's happened? He asked for a donkey. Hazal explained he should ask for a donkey, that he should ride on a donkey. What does it mean? That when we open each heaven, the prosperity coming, the abundance coming. But we want prosperity with no embarrassment. We want prosperity that I'll have a brocha with that. I have a prosperity that I'm not going to be shy with the job that I'm doing, and etc. Do you understand what I'm saying, Mark?
Yep. Other question is that, are you saying we just read it in Ivrit, or we must do the Targum as well?
Oh, that's very good. So Hazal tell us, Kore bechol lashon shemevin. What it means, Kore bechol lashon shemevin? You write in every language. First of all, the Targum is difficult. Targum is Aramit. You follow?
But even the English translation, for example.
Wait. Vachabiki. Targum is Aramic. It's not, it have nothing to do with that. Don't read the Targum. It's very difficult. What Stephen doing, he's doing Shnai Mikra, that he read the same verse twice, and then he read the Targum. Or what he do a Had Mikra, Had Targum, and on Shabbos when he read, it'd be Mekaven Yotzei Dechova for all of those. Mikra again. So you read it twice. But that's a different issue. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about that when you read the Mikra is what's written in the Chumash, try to read it preferably in Hebrew. Why? Because that's Sfat HaKodesh. That's the holy language. And the holy language, and that's the secret about it, that when you read it, those words that you're saying, the Kabbalistic rabbi explained that you actually, by saying words, you're actually creating the name of the Almighty. What does it mean? Those holy names that you mentioned, that you're reading the Torah, from them there is Rashi Tevot, acronym, there is Sofet Tevot, the end of the words, all different things that we don't understand, that we mention in the holy name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So if you can read it in Hebrew, lehatchila, that's a great thing. That will happen, that will help to things to happen. You understand what I'm saying, Mark?
Yeah,
I hope
and
that I
for
explained
people who
myself.
can't read Hebrew well or don't understand it, is it essential to understand it or just read it?
The essential is definitely to read and to understand. But what's happening if you can't understand? It's like reading Chinese. I can't, let's say that I can read Chinese. I don't understand Chinese, so what's the use of reading it? So נכון, לכתחילה, בן אדם מתפלל בכל שפה שהוא מבין. That means in every language that he understands. But if you can, and I know that sometimes it's very difficult to certain people because the Hebrew is not so good, try to read it in Hebrew and look for the commentary in English. Do you understand what I'm saying? So you'll know what you're talking. Like for example, let me give you an example. אלה הדברים. What does it mean, אלה הדברים? Those are the words. So אלה, I'm sure that everyone knows, those are the words. You know, אלה הדברים אשר דיבר משה אל בני ישראל. Those are the words that Moshe spoke to בני ישראל. So you say it, and some of it you understand. Whatever you don't understand, some of this word, you look at the commentary. And then you start fulfilling by mentioning those words in Hebrew. Okay, in Sfat HaKodesh, you're creating one long name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as the mystical rabbi explained. Shemo HaGadol Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the one holy name of the Almighty. You follow?
Yep, thank you, Rav.
Okay, any other question, Rabotai, regarding Sefer Devorim? So now I see that you have no more question. Okay, so we see from here, number one, we learned today, Rabotai, the virtue of Sefer Devorim. Sefer Devorim have 11 parshiot, remember, have 34 chapters, 955 verses, 75 mitzvot aseh, that means positive command, 122 negative command on it. Okay, we know that Moshe Rabbeinu wrote it. I'm just summarizing everything again. Okay, we know that there is a mahloket amongst the sages who wrote the last 8 verses of Sefer Devarim. Some people say it was Moshe Rabbeinu. Some people say it Yeshua ben Nun. Okay, we know that Sefer Devarim have 3 different names, and they are Devarim, Mishneh Torah, okay, the Sefer HaTochachot. Then, when did Moshe wrote Sefer Devarim? In the last 36 days of his life, from Aleph Shvat to Zayin Adar. Now, here comes the question. Hazal ask, wait, it was Adar Aleph or Adar Bet? Do you understand the question? I'm just doing with you a bit now. Kushiyah, tirutz, kushiyah. But so Hazal asked that question. Okay, we understand Aleph Shvat. The first of Shvat, there is no question. But maybe it was Adar Bet, Shana Me'oberet. It was 2 Adarim. A leap year. It was 2 Adarim. So the Gemara say, and most of the poskim say, no, it was Zayin Adar. It was Zayin Adar, it was the first Adar. That's the halacha there, I don't want to go through it. Okay, then we also learned that Moshe Rabbeinu wrote the last 4 parshiot in the last day of his life, and we brought the source for it from Seder HaOlam, that wrote Rabbi Yossi ben Halafta. He wrote Seder Olam, the book that called Seder Olam. What it means, Seder Olam? The sequence of the world, how things start from Bereshit, from the day of the creation, until today. Okay, then we explain the difference between the 4 books of Moses, that Bereshit, Shmot, Vayikra, Bamidbar. We explain the difference between them to Sefer Devarim. That Sefer Devarim actually come to explain to Bnei Israel that they can understand the depths of the contents of those 4 books. Why? Because they couldn't understand what HaKadosh Baruch Hu speak to them. They couldn't understand the depths. And here comes Moshe Rabbeinu, and explain to them. That's how the Maharal, you remember, I brought the Maharal Miprag, and I brought also the Gaon Mivilna, and I brought the Magid Meduvna, that's Rabbi Yaakov Krentz, that explain how that Sefer Devarim come to open in the front of Bnei Israel to understand where they sin, when they make a Kadosh Baruch Hu cross, how they should change themselves, how they should work on their deeds to improve. And then we explained the 955, that there is 900 heaven, that matat, that means the highest angel, we don't understand what is it, that he can reach to 900. More than that, he can't. The last 55 heaven, only Bnei Israel can open them. How they can open them? In the merit of Moshe Rabbeinu, that he wrote 955 verses because he had the string and he knew that there is 955 heaven. As he knew? Obviously, because he's going to bring the Torah. He was with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So he wrote 955 verses so we can open all the abundance to bring on us. And Be'ezrat Hashem, that we should all merit to receive from those abundance, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu would bless us, and we'll see our kavanah, that when we read the book, even if we not 100% understand the secret, and we're not pronouncing the proper words, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will open those gates for every heaven, and open for us, and open our eyes and our wisdom to understand the Torah, and will merit from wealth, health, and all the other blessing and salvation that there is, that we want, that each one want individually. Be'ezrat Hashem, we should merit by reading the book of Devorim, and the most important, that we're waiting for Mashiach Tzidkenu speedily in our day, that we should all merit to see him, and we should all merit to celebrate, to see Mashiach, and then all our tzoros finish, and we'll see Bet HaMikdash, and then we're all going to be united. Amen. Ken Yeh Ratzon.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Everyone.
Thanks, Rob.
I hope that
Have
you
a good
enjoy.
evening.
Very much,
you.
very interesting.
Be'ezrat Hashem, we'll be in touch on Thursday for
Wow.
Parashat HaShavua. All the best. Ciao, ciao.